Welcome to the official podcast of Vienna Shadows, a secret society uncovering Vienna's hidden mysteries. Lean back and enjoy the show.
Imagine a tabletop game where the weather outside is quite literally a monster trying to kill your players.
Right, yeah. Not a dragon or a lich, but just the damp, freezing autumn air itself.
Exactly. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are talking directly to you, the game master.
Because you're the one prepping for game night, right?
Sure.
And we're going to help you build something really special.
Yeah, we are taking a massive, deeply atmospheric dossier for the TTRPG Vienna Shadows, specifically looking at this mythic autumn adventure. And we're basically handing you the blueprint to run it.
It's such a fantastic setting. You're taking your players to the autumn of the 1920s in a post-Habsburg Vienna.
And it's the specific time of year where the boundary between the material world and, cosmic horror thins out right alongside the falling leaves.
Oh, absolutely. It's an incredibly rich setting. I mean, this isn't your typical Monster of the Week campaign.
No, not at all. It centers around this clandestine, supernatural conflict called the War of the Robes.
Right, where you have three occult factions basically fighting for the soul of the city. So today we're going to map out the mechanics, the lore, and a complete 3-act arc that you can just, drop right onto your table.
But before you can unleash those factions, you really have to understand how your players are going to interact with this world mechanically.
Yeah, starting with the very air they breathe.
Right. So the underlying engine here is actually very accessible. It uses a standard D6 system, so you just need a 6-sided die.
Which is great for keeping the pace up. So if your players want to, say, bribe a waiter, they roll a d6 against their charisma stat.
And lower is a pass, right? Higher means trouble.
Exactly. And you manage the character sheets digitally on a PC or a mobile device, which I think is crucial because those stats are going to fluctuate wildly.
Because the stakes are incredibly high. If a character's health hits 0, they're dead.
Yep. And if they're for
their sanity, right?
Yeah, for sanity. If that hits 0, they've gone completely insane. Their mind just shatters.
But the wild thing is, the most immediate threat isn't a cultist with a dagger. As the city transitions into November, the game introduces this damp chill mechanic.
Oh, I love the damp chill. It turns the physical map of Vienna into a ticking timer.
It really does. Every step your investigators take away from a warm building is essentially a physical tax.
Yeah, on their inventory space.
Yeah.
Which is such a unique way to handle weather.
Right, because if they spend more than 2 hours outdoors, like out in the Wienerwald, without specific winter preparation, they have to pass a strength save.
And if they fail that save, they get a fatigue condition.
And that fatigue physically takes up an inventory slot. I mean, I love that. Their pockets are literally weighed down by how exhausted they are.
It's brilliant. It forces this highly claustrophobic playstyle at the table. Your players will actively avoid long treks through the city because the weather is actively punishing them.
Like a slow draining battery on their souls. It's not just a spooky backdrop. The weather is literally a cosmic dread mechanic.
Exactly. And if they happen to witness the horror of the dying light out in that autumn gloom, they risk getting a severe status effect called melancholy.
Melancholy is so fascinating from a role-playing perspective. It completely saps a character's energy, and it actively lowers their strength stat.
You can't just, have your players sleep this off in a hotel room. That won't work.
Right. They need a specific intervention.
Yeah, they either have to seek out a Chinese remedy from an apothecary or, and this is much more thematic, they need social connection.
Which means they have to immerse themselves in a crowded coffee house.
Right. You're curing that melancholy by seeking out human connection.
But the irony here is that stepping into that safe coffee house puts you right in the crosshairs of the city's next major threat.
Oh, totally. Because you're sending them straight to the Ringstraße.
So since the players absolutely need these coffee houses to recover, let's look at the city layout.
The Ringstraße is this grand circular boulevard, and it acts as the main stage for this entire 1920s drama.
The dossier talks a lot about the dominant architectural style there, which is historicism.
Right, which was a real movement dedicated to resurrecting ancient styles to project legitimacy and power.
Especially the Austrian Parliament building. The architect, Theophil von Hansen, spent years in Athens and designed it with these massive Greek revival elements.
Yeah, like the 8 grand Corinthian columns representing the pillars of law.
But in the esoteric lore of the game, this architecture acts as a literal containment field.
It really does. It uses the rational, mathematical aesthetics of the ancient Greek world to hold back the irrational, chaotic void of the mythos.
So every marble column is a magical ward.
Exactly. Which brings us to probably the most brilliant detail for a GM to describe to their players.
Yes. Right in front of that Parliament building is the Palace Athene Brunnen, this massive fountain.
It's incredibly imposing. You've got statues of the four rivers symbolizing the flow of life. You've got stone owls watching over the plaza.
And towering above it all is Athena, the goddess of wisdom, holding Nike, the goddess of victory.
But she has her back turned to the Parliament.
Wait, so why does the goddess of wisdom turning her back matter so much to the occultists?
Well, historically, local humor called it a joke. Like, she's turning her back in political disgust at the politicians inside.
That's pretty funny.
Right. But in Vienna Shadows, occultists see this architectural quirk as a spiritual blind spot.
Oh, I see. So Athena's wisdom is facing outward, leaving the building totally unprotected from behind.
Exactly. And the faction known as the Golden Robes plans to exploit that crack in the shield.
What are they trying to do?
They want to corrupt the gilded Nike statue in Athena's hand. If they can transmute the pure gold of wisdom into the sickly, decadent yellow of Carcosa.
Oh, wow. They can flip the polarity of the entire Ringstraße.
Yes, turning a warding field into a summoning gateway.
That is wild. And as a GM, while that massive cosmic ritual is looming in the background, your players are probably just hiding in what the locals call the extended living room, right?
Yeah, the coffee house, places like Café Central or Café Lampman.
Because housing in 1920s Vienna was notoriously cramped, so the coffee house is where people actually live their lives.
It's the primary site to heal melancholy, sure, but it doubles as the ultimate hub for espionage.
The dossier calls it the espionage waltz.
I love that term. Rival faction members sit at adjacent tables, communicating in these coded subtexts, while early jazz bands play syncopated rhythms in the background.
It gives you such incredible flavor for role-playing NPCs. Like, you have the Stammgast.
Right, the regular.
Yeah, the regular, who orders one melange coffee and sits for hours behind those massive wooden newspaper racks.
Just listening. Your players might think they're having a private conversation, but the waiter taking their order, or the man reading the paper next to them?
Could be an agent for the Golden Robes.
Exactly, which is actually the perfect time to detail the antagonists driving this War of the Robes.
Let's do it. If the Golden Robes are attacking the Parliament, who else is fighting for the city?
Well, let's start with those Golden Robes. They are terrifying because they hide in plain sight in high society.
And they are obsessed with the decadent movement, right?
Yes, and they worship the king in yellow. Now, for GMs new to the mythos, this involves an alien, maddening city called Carcosa.
And a cosmic entity that spreads madness through art and plays.
Exactly. They use the yellow sign as this insidious mind control device.
Right. They hide it in Art Nouveau posters all around Vienna, essentially turning the public into unwitting actors.
And their ultimate goal for the autumn season is the Golden Solstice, which is manifesting Carcosa right onto the Ringstraße.
Okay, so that's the Golden Robes. What about the Crimson Robes?
They are the exact opposite. Where the Golden Robes represent chaotic decadence, the Crimson Robes are a faction of stagnant, bureaucratic terror.
So they've infiltrated the secret police and the government bureaucracy.
Correct. And they serve an entity simply known as the Void.
Their goal is the tenebrous peace, which, I mean, sounds somewhat calming to a player until you describe what it actually looks like.
Yeah, tenebrous peace means keeping humanity in a permanent state of paralyzed fear so that nothing worse wakes up.
Just awful. And to enforce that peace, they use a creature called the Nachtkrop.
Oh, this is a fantastic monster to throw at a party.
It's based on an old Austrian bogeyman, isn't it?
It is, but the game interprets it as a giant, eyeless raven with ragged holes in its wings.
That visual is just
horrifying, yeah. And the mechanical application is brilliant. You don't just roll physical damage.
Right. If the Nachtkrap's shadow touches a player character, they suffer a headache status effect,
which constantly drains their mental gauge.
So the Crimson Robes basically deploy the Nachtkrap to clear the streets at night, forcing your players back into the damp chill or into hiding.
Exactly. And then you have the third faction operating completely outside high society and the bureaucracy.
The Black Robes.
The Black Robes. You find them out in the suburbs in places like Grinzing or Neusdorf.
Where all the vineyards are.
Right. They are rooted in agrarian mysticism, and they worship Shub-Niggurath.
Okay, so to translate that from Lovecraftian lore for the GM, that's the Black Goat of the Woods.
Right, a primordial, twisted fertility deity. And the Black Robes use traditional Huriger wine taverns as fronts for their cult.
So wait, the cozy wine harvest festivals in the suburbs are actually traps.
Oh, 100%. When you describe these taverns to your players, you mention a pine branch, a bushin, hung over the door.
Which normally just means the new wine is ready, right?
Yeah, traditional signal that the harvest is ready. But here, it signals a ritual is prepared.
Wow. And the patrons are drinking Sturm, which is a fermenting, surprisingly potent young wine.
So if I'm a player sitting in this cozy tavern, drinking young wine, and listening to the traditional Schrammel music,
The melancholic accordion and guitar folk music.
right, I'm probably feeling pretty safe.
But the Black Robes are counting on that. The Sturm acts as a chemical agent. It deliberately lowers the sanity and magical resistance of anyone drinking it.
So the young wine is literally a cultist roofie.
Yes, agrarian mysticism twisted into cosmic horror. And while the patrons are intoxicated, eating cold cuts before what is essentially their final meal, the Schrammel music is acting as a specialized sonic frequency.
It's basically a dinner bell,
Literally a dinner bell. It calls to the dark young.
which are those massive, terrifying tree monstrosities that serve Shub-Niggurath.
Exactly. They wait in the skeletal, leafless trees of the Wienerwald while the Black Robes herd the chemically compliant victims out into the cold.
Man, the mechanics, the topography, and these three incredibly distinct factions just give a GM so much to work with.
They really do. But the dossier doesn't just leave you with lore, it strings it all together into a complete, ready-to-run, 3-act adventure arc.
Oh, yes. The Silent Sermon of the Crimson Solstice. Let's outline exactly how a GM can string this together.
Okay, so Act 1 is titled The Vanishing at Cafe Central. It starts quietly.
Right. A prominent member of the Social Democratic Council disappears from his regular table.
You describe the warm coffee still sitting there, and resting in the saucer is a single black feather from a Nachtkrab.
Which instantly thrusts the players directly into the espionage waltz. They have to interrogate the head waiters, the Oberkellner.
And they see absolutely everything but are notoriously tight-lipped.
Exactly. Following the clues takes them to public baths, where the Crimson Robes are secretly screening citizens for genetic compatibility with void entities.
Which is terrifying. And eventually the trail leads down into the dark basement of the Parliament building.
Now, it's really worth noting for GMs here that the game leans heavily into the real, incredibly tense political history of interwar Vienna.
Right. And we should pause here just to be very clear about the political elements in the source material.
Yes, absolutely.
The dossier uses the actual Social Democratic councils, the Red Vienna housing programs, and mentions boxes of Nazi-era paintings found in that basement alongside occult artifacts.
Right, and we have to state explicitly that we are impartially reporting the historical and contextual lore of the game setting here.
Exactly, taking absolutely no sides and endorsing no political views whatsoever. We are simply conveying the material provided for the TTRPG.
Right. As a GM, you're not taking a political stance by running this. You're just using the historical reality of the era to ground the cosmic horror in human history.
The darkness of the mythos mirrors the very real darkness gathering in Europe at the time.
Perfectly said. So down in that basement, the players find a map of the Wienerwald with solstice sites marked in blood.
And that map kicks off Act 2.
Act 2 is the harvest of the Wienerwald, and it's set on November 11th, St. Martin's Day.
Right. Traditional folklore says that geese interrupted St. Martin's sermon, which is why people eat roasted goose, the Martinigansel, on this day.
But the Black Robes twist this cultural touchstone into something horrific for the Silent Sermon.
The sermon takes place deep in the woods. When your players are navigating the trees, you describe the sound of honking geese in the distance.
But as they get closer, they realize those aren't geese.
No, they are the screams of human victims being transformed into satyr-like beings by Shub-Niggurath.
That is so dark. And the psychological pacing here is key for the GM. Mechanically, the party is being stalked by an unseen mountain lion.
An avatar of the black goat.
Yeah. And if you're running this, don't put the lion on the board right away. Keep it just out of sight.
Describe snapping twigs, glowing eyes in the periphery. Build the paranoia to test their sanity gauges before they even roll for combat.
And that paranoia pushes them right into Act 3, the battle for the Ringstraße.
The climax. The players rush back to the city on the eve of the first winter frost.
Because the Golden Robes are finally making their move to flip the polarity at the Athena fountain and manifest the yellow light of Carcosa.
This is your grand finale. The game introduces dual combat here, meaning your players are caught in a massive crossfire.
Right, they have to fight off the Black Robes who want to plunge the city into absolute stagnant darkness to stop the ritual.
While the party simultaneously tries to sabotage the Golden Robes.
But to stop the Golden Robes, the players can't just shoot them, right?
No, they have to use resonant artifacts, which are items they've gathered throughout the arc, like maybe a spirit wrapping hand they found earlier at the Prater amusement park.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, they use these artifacts to mechanically jam the radio broadcasts of the King in Yellow's play.
It requires the GM to balance physical combat with high-stakes skill checks, managing this chaotic battlefield as the ancient Greek architecture literally strains against the alien geometries of Carcosa.
And as the dust settles from that battle, the first snow begins to fall. Autumn ends.
But the horror doesn't pack up and leave.
Not at all. The transition to winter brings the Raunächte, the mystical 12 nights where the barrier between worlds is at its thinnest.
The wild hunt sweeps down from the hills. The game even incorporates the myth of the Yule Cat.
A massive, supernatural feline stalking the impoverished estates, punishing those left vulnerable by the city's crumbling social safety nets.
It's like conducting a symphony of dread. You start with the quiet clinking of spoons in a tense cafe, move to the melancholic accordion in a terrifying forest, and end with an all-out cosmic battle at the Parliament.
So Game Masters, let's recap the toolkit you now have for your next session. You have the fast, accessible D6 mechanics that keep the story moving.
You have the damp chill, which acts as a physical tax on your player's inventory, literally weaponizing the weather.
You have the topography of the Ringstraße and the claustrophobia of the coffee houses.
You have the deeply conflicting motives of the golden, crimson, and black robes.
And you have a full 3-act structure that takes your players from a quiet cafe disappearance to that cosmic battle at the Parliament.
You have everything required to make your players truly feel the weight of the fog, the paranoia of the Stamgast watching them, and the futility of fighting a war where the architecture itself is compromised.
Absolutely. But we want to leave you with one final, deeply unsettling concept from the dossier to mull over before your next session.
Oh yeah, this is a good one.
We mentioned earlier that the Golden Robes used the yellow sign, hiding it in Art Nouveau posters, to turn the Viennese public into actors in a play they don't even know they're in.
Right, because the King in Yellow thrives on narrative and drama.
Exactly. So the next time your players feel clever for solving a clue or rolling a critical success to defeat a cultist, ask yourself, are they actually disrupting the King in Yellow's plans, or are they just hitting their exact marks in his script?
This concludes today's episode. Don't forget to rate and subscribe. Until next time, Vienna Shadows, signing off.